Hi, this is part 3 of the series, Intimate Tour of the Vagina. And in this video I want to address a question that comes up quite a bit in my online sessions, and the question is being asked from male and female clients. And that would be the question, what is better, a clitoral or vaginal orgasm? So before I get into answering that question, I want to talk about why are we still having that debate. Sigmund Freud made this and other statements about human sexuality in an era that was obsessed with distinguishing and justifying social roles of women and men. He thought that clitoral orgasms are inferior to vaginal orgasms. Now, of course, that has been totally discredited over time, but it still amazes me 100 years later we're still finding ourselves in a debate about sexual inferiority and superiority. And I think it's because of the primordial fear that we have of female sexual pleasure and possibly female sexual independence. What is better and what feels better? Well, first let me tell you what is better. For reasons like I've just mentioned before, vaginal orgasms are often misconstrued as the best way for women to orgasm. Well, let me tell you, it is the easiest for penises, but for women it is the most difficult one. And I'm going to tell you now why.
From a physiological point, the orgasm is a reflex and, as such, has a sensory and motor component. There's little argument over the fact that the motor expression of this reflex is vaginal, because the rhythmic contractions at every 0.8 seconds of the circumvaginal muscles constitute the female orgasm. Now, the clitoris is in charge of the sensory part of the reflex, but is not involved in female orgasmic discharge. Now, you can imagine that using the clitoris with its 8,000 nerve endings is easier to get the vagina to start the rhythmic contractions and to ultimately experience orgasm. During intercourse, the clitoris remains the sensory component of the reflex of the orgasm. As you have learned from my last video, the structure of the clitoris is much bigger than the eye can see. The corpus cavernosum and other parts listed are made out of erectile tissue. With arousal, the clitoris has increased blood flow and becomes engorged. The erectile tissue areas will swell also, helping with the pleasure response. Increased blood flow and engorged tissue allow for more compression and nerve excitation, increasing sensitivity and helping you achieve orgasm. Now, the bulbs of the vestibule run right along the vaginal canal, while the legs dive deeply into the muscular tissue and reside within the first and second layers of your pelvic muscle group. As you can see, the clitoris, with its complete structure, not just the jewel on top, the whole clitoris remains the sensory component, but the sensations are diffused, and that is why 80% of women need direct stimulation of the clitoris to have an orgasm.
So what feels better? Well, that is completely subjective and individual. As some of you may know, Masters and Johnson did some extensive research on the bodily responses to orgasms, during orgasms. They state that devices registering the body's responses to each type of orgasm, vaginal and clitoral, record virtually the same data from a strictly anatomical point of view. They further say that there's no difference in the reactions of the pelvis viscera to sexual stimulus, if it's clitoral, if it's vaginal, or any other erogenous zone per se of the body. So the contrast is highly subjective. Some women would find orgasm during intercourse somehow diffused and full-bodied, and therefore not as exciting as clitoral orgasms. Now, some women would find orgasms during intercourse more fulfilling. They like that whole body feeling. They find it more fulfilling than the more intense possibly limited experience with a clitoral orgasm. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, and I hope I'm clear about that how a woman experiences her orgasm varies from individual to individual, and within a woman it varies from time to time. Well, to sum it up, the clitoris is the powerhouse of the female orgasm. Each of us can experience vaginal and clitoral orgasms. And how we feel about the intensity is completely individual and subjective. So maybe we should just stop labeling the orgasms and spend more energy on just indulging in them. If you feel like this conversation is you're completely left out of this conversation because you have not experienced yet an orgasm, contact me. Book a session and I will teach you how to listen to your body and how to have your experience with your orgasm. I'm looking forward to hear from you. Take care.